They call it the City of Peace. Yet no city on earth has seen more blood spilled over its stones. Jerusalem, a name that means peace, yet echoes with the sound of conquest. Destroyed twice, besieged 23 times, attacked 52 times, and captured and recaptured 44 times. So which is it? A divine promise or an eternal battlefield? Think you know Jerusalem? Think again. Because this ancient city is more than headlines and conflict, more than holy sites and tour groups. This is where heaven touches earth, where 3 billion souls trace their prayers, where every stone holds a secret, every street a scripture, and every sunrise brings both hope and haunting memory. In a city smaller than most airports, 3 of humanity's greatest faiths collide, coexist, and somehow create something that shouldn't exist. A place too sacred to share, yet too holy to abandon. Today, Travel Hidden Portals takes you beyond the politics, past the checkpoints, and into the soul of the most contested real estate on Earth. This is not the Jerusalem of breaking news. This is the Jerusalem that breaks hearts and men's souls. Step through the ancient gates of the old city, and modern time dissolves like morning mist. Here, within walls built by Suleiman the Magnificent in the 16th century, 4 quarters press against each other like tectonic plates of faith. The air here doesn't just carry sound, it carries centuries. Church bells ring over the Islamic call to prayer. Hebrew chants rise through Byzantine arches. Armenian hymns whisper through Ottoman doorways. 1 square kilometer, that's all. Yet within these walls live 35,000 people, 300 disputed monuments, and the weight of 3 millennia. The streets don't follow logic. They follow memory. Carved by pilgrims' feet, widened by conquerors' armies, worn smooth by believers' tears. Every corner turns into another century. Every stairway descends into someone else's paradise. This isn't just architecture. It's archaeology standing upright. Where else can you buy bread from a shop built on Crusader stones, supported by Roman columns, shadowed by Mamluk arches, and crowned with Ottoman tiles? The Old City doesn't tell one story. It tells all stories simultaneously, like an ancient radio picking up every station at once. At the heart of the Jewish quarter, one wall stands apart from all others. Not the tallest, not the most beautiful, but the most tear-stained. The Western Wall, the Kotel, the last fragment of the Second Temple, destroyed by Rome in 70 CE. All that remains of what was once the dwelling place of the divine presence on earth. Watch the faithful approach. They don't just walk, they're pulled, as if by invisible threads woven 2,000 years ago. Men wrapped in prayer shawls, women clutching worn prayer books, soldiers in uniform, children on their fathers' shoulders. But look closer. Between the massive Herodian stones, Thousands of folded papers flutter like white butterflies. Prayers, wishes, promises, grief, all compressed into tiny scrolls and pressed into cracks that have held 1,000,000 such messages. They say these stones can speak, not in words, but in the salt of tears absorbed over centuries, not in voice, but in the oil of countless hands that have touched them, leaving the lower stones polished smooth as silk. Twice a year, before Passover and Rosh Hashanah, the notes are carefully removed and buried on the Mount of Olives. Even paper prayers receive a proper burial here. Nothing is forgotten. Everything is sacred. At night, when the crowds thin and the moon rises over the plaza, you can hear it. The wall doesn't echo prayers back. It swallows them whole, adding them to its infinite archive of human longing. Through the Christian quarter's narrow streets, where vendors sell wooden crosses next to Armenian ceramics, stands Christianity's most sacred paradox, a church built on an execution ground, beauty rising from brutality. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre doesn't just mark where Christ died. It encompasses his entire final journey: crucifixion, burial, resurrection, compressed into one overwhelming space. 6 Christian denominations share this church, and share is a generous word. Greek Orthodox, Armenian Apostolic, Roman Catholic, Coptic, Syriac, and Ethiopian Orthodox each guards their section with fierce devotion. The keys, held by 2 Muslim families for the past 800 years, because the Christians couldn't agree who should hold them. Step inside, and sensory overload strikes immediately. Incense thick enough to taste. Candlelight fracturing through ancient smoke. The sound of prayers in a dozen languages creating a sonic tapestry that feels less heard than absorbed. At the entrance lies the stone of anointing, where tradition says Christ's body was prepared for burial. Watch the pilgrims. They don't just touch it. They collapse onto it, pressing crosses, rosaries, entire suitcases of religious items against its surface, as if holiness could transfer through contact. Upstairs, Golgotha, the place of the skull, where salvation was nailed to wood. Pilgrims queue for hours to kneel and reach through a hole to touch the rock where the cross allegedly stood. Some emerge weeping. Some emerge transformed. Some emerge and immediately queue again. But the heart of the church is the edicule, the tomb itself. Inside this ornate structure within a structure, a simple stone bench marks where death lost its sting. Only a few can enter at a time. The wait can last hours, yet no one complains. This is Christianity's ground zero, where faith either shatters or solidifies. There is no middle ground at Golgotha. Rising from the southeastern corner of the Old City, the noble sanctuary spreads across 35 acres like an island of serenity floating above Jerusalem's chaos. For Muslims, this is Al-Haram al-Sharif, the 3rd holiest site in Islam. For Jews, the Temple Mount, the holiest place on earth where their temples once stood. Same stones, different stories. infinite complications. The Dome of the Rock commands the skyline, its golden crown visible from every corner of Jerusalem. But this is no ordinary dome. Beneath it lies the foundation stone, the rock from which Muslims believe Prophet Muhammad ascended to heaven, the rock where Jews believe Abraham nearly sacrificed Isaac. The rock, some say, marks the center of the world itself. The dome doesn't just reflect sunlight, it amplifies it, sending golden rays across the white limestone city like a divine lighthouse. Its turquoise tiles, inscribed with Quranic verses, create geometric patterns so complex they seem to breathe. Nearby, Al-Aqsa Mosque stretches low and long, its silver dome modest beside its golden neighbor. Yet this is where 5,000 Muslims gather for Friday prayers, their synchronized movements creating human waves across ancient stones. But silence speaks loudest here. In the early morning, before the tour groups arrive, the compound becomes what it was meant to be. A garden suspended between earth and heaven. Olive trees older than most countries provide shade. Cats patrol the grounds like soft-footed security. The only sounds are fountains and birds, as if the modern world simply cannot penetrate these walls. Access is controlled, contested, political. Yet somehow, 5 times a day, the call to prayer still rises from these heights, floating over Jerusalem like it has for 1,300 years. A sonic flag planted in the sky. East of the Old City, the Mount of Olives rises like a wave of stone frozen mid-crash. From its summit, Jerusalem spreads below like a map of human hope and failure. This is the grandstand for the end of the world. Jews believe the Messiah will arrive here first. Christians say Christ will return to this spot. Muslims hold that the final judgment begins on this slope. 3 faiths, 1 mountain, infinite patience. The Jewish cemetery cascades down the western slope. 150,000 graves, all facing the Temple Mount, positioned for resurrection. The oldest tombstones date back 3,000 years. The newest were added yesterday. Prophet Zechariah rests here. So do Israeli prime ministers. Death, the great equalizer, makes neighbors of enemies. Between the graves, wild poppies bloom red as blood each spring, as if the mountain itself remembers every conflict. The stones tell stories. Some grand, medieval rabbis, biblical prophets. Others, heartbreaking. Entire families buried in single years. Testimony to pogroms and plagues. At Gethsemane, at the mountain's base, olive trees older than Christianity still grow. Their trunks, thick as history itself, witnessed Christ's final free night. Scientists say olive trees can regenerate from their roots indefinitely. These trees might literally be the same ones that heard him pray. The Church of all nations guards these trees now, its modern facade deliberately dark, designed to evoke the agony of that night. Inside, purple glass casts everything in twilight, eternal dusk for an eternal moment of decision. But it's at sunset when the Mount of Olives reveals its true power. As shadows pour into the Kidron Valley like dark wine, the last light catches Jerusalem's walls, turning them gold. For a moment, the city looks like what everyone wants it to be: pure, unified, at peace. Then darkness falls, and reality returns. Not every Jerusalem story unfolds in sacred spaces. Some emerge between the tomatoes and fresh bread of Mahane Yehuda market, where regular life refuses to stop for anything. Not wars, not walls, not prophecies. By day, this is Jerusalem's stomach. Vendors who've worked the same stalls for 50 years shout prices in Hebrew, Arabic, Russian, English. A linguistic fruit salad, matching their actual fruit salads. Iraqi Jews sell Georgian cheese. Palestinians pile Persian rice. Ethiopians grind Armenian coffee. The market doesn't care about your politics. It cares if you're hungry. Watch the shoppers, ultra-Orthodox women comparing eggplant prices, secular hipsters seeking organic tahini, Arab grandmothers squeezing every pomegranate, Russian immigrants arguing over pickle quality. This is the Jerusalem that doesn't make headlines, the one where people just need groceries. But come Thursday night, and transformation occurs. The produce disappears. The stalls become bars. The alleys fill with music. Young Jerusalem emerges from wherever it hides during daylight, turning the market into the city's beating heart. The same stones that hold lemons by noon hold beer by midnight. The same vendors who sold you fish might serve you wine. It's not contradiction, it's survival. Jerusalem style. Just outside the old city's southern walls, Mount Zion holds more history per square meter than seems physically possible. David's tomb, the Last Supper room, Dormition Abbey. 3 faiths stacked literally on top of each other. The ground floor belongs to Judaism. Here, allegedly, lies King David, the shepherd who became king, the warrior who wrote psalms. The tomb is covered in velvet, crowded with prayer books, surrounded by believers swaying in devotion. Never mind that archaeologists say David was probably buried elsewhere. Faith doesn't require proof. It requires belief. One floor up, Christianity stakes its claim. The cenacle, the upper room, where Christ held the Last Supper. Gothic arches rise over the space where communion was born. Except the arches are from the Crusades, and the mihrab in the wall points to Mecca, from when it was a mosque. And the building itself is built on Byzantine foundations, which rest on Roman ruins. Every conqueror left their mark. No one erased what came before. They just built on top, creating an architectural archaeology of faith. Outside, Dormition Abbey rises like a fortress of faith, its conical roof a landmark visible across Jerusalem. Inside, the basement holds something unusual, a statue of Mary, sleeping. Not dead, sleeping. This is where tradition says she fell into eternal sleep before ascending to heaven. Even death, apparently, works differently on Mount Zion. As sunset approaches, the muezzin's call from the nearby mosque mingles with church bells and Jewish prayers. Three distinct melodies that somehow, for a moment, harmonize. It never lasts long, but it happens. Every single day. Even in this city of stone and spirit, nature insists on its presence. In the Valley of Gazelles, in the heart of modern Jerusalem, a herd of mountain gazelles lives as their ancestors did, indifferent to the highways and apartments surrounding them. These aren't zoo animals. They're wild, free, and thriving in the middle of one of the most contested cities on Earth. At dawn, watch them graze between the wildflowers, their movements liquid grace against the harsh urban backdrop. They were here before the first temple. They'll be here after the last headline. In the olive groves near Gethsemane, Syrian woodpeckers drum against ancient bark. Their rhythm, rapid, insistent, eternal, provides a baseline to the city's prayers. Hoopoes, Israel's national bird, crown themselves with orange crests as they probe the ground for insects, looking like feathered kings in a diminished kingdom. At night, Jerusalem's skies fill with unexpected wings. Pipistrelle bats emerge from cracks in the western wall itself, turning sacred stones into nurseries. They navigate by echolocation, finding their way through darkness by listening to echoes. A perfect metaphor for Jerusalem, everyone navigating by the echoes of ancient voices. In spring, the hills around Jerusalem explode with wild cyclamen, crimson carpets spreading between limestone rocks. These flowers bloom after the first rains, their petals twisted like tiny turbans, their beauty fierce and brief. They push through the rockiest soil, bloom in the harshest conditions, then disappear, leaving only seeds for next year's resurrection. Even the city's cats, thousands of them, carry something ancient in their amber eyes. Fed by no one and everyone, they patrol the holy sites like soft-footed security, indifferent to human divisions. They sleep on Jewish graves, hunt in Muslim gardens, sun themselves on Christian stones. The only creatures in Jerusalem with unlimited access. On the western edge of Jerusalem, carved into Mount Herzl, Yad Vashem spreads across 45 acres of carefully crafted remembrance. This is not just a Holocaust museum. It's an architecture of absence, a topology of loss. The main museum burrows into the mountain like a wound, its triangular concrete form cutting through the ridge. Inside, the floor slopes downward, pulling visitors into darkness before rising again toward light. An architectural journey through hell that ends with a view of Jerusalem forest. The Hall of Names stops everyone. A dome containing 600 photographs of victims gazing down, their faces reflected in water below, creating an infinite column of memory. 3 million names documented. 3 million still missing. The empty shelves waiting for names that may never be recovered speak louder than any full ones. Outside, the Garden of the Righteous honors non-Jews who saved Jewish lives. Each tree represents someone who risked everything to save strangers. 27,000 trees, and counting. A forest of conscience growing on Jerusalem stone. But It's the children's memorial that breaks you. A single candle reflected infinitely in the darkness, creating a galaxy of lights for the 1.5 million children murdered. Their names, ages, and countries read aloud continuously. The recording takes 3 months to complete, then begins again. Eternal testimony in the eternal city. Yad Vashem doesn't ask you to understand. It asks you to remember. And in Jerusalem, a city built on memory, this might be the most important commandment of all. Hidden in Jerusalem's western hills, Ein Karem feels like a secret the city forgot to tell. Stone houses cascade down terraced slopes. Church bells compete with mosque calls. Art galleries hide in Ottoman houses. This is Jerusalem's village within a city. Tradition says John the Baptist was born here. Mary visited her cousin Elizabeth here. The spring that gives the village its name, Ein Karem, means spring of the vineyard, still flows. Its water-feeding gardens that bloom with biblical plenty. The Church of the Visitation climbs the hillside in stages, its facade depicting Mary's journey. Inside, the walls display the Magnificat prayer in 42 languages. But the real prayer is the view from its courtyard. Jerusalem spread across the hills like a promise that's both kept and broken. Artists discovered Ein Karem in the 1950s, drawn by light that seems softer here, more forgiving. Now galleries and studios fill the old houses. The village that commemorates ancient visits has become a pilgrimage site for seekers of beauty, not just faith. On Friday afternoons, just before Shabbat, Ein Karem performs its weekly miracle. The buses stop, the tourists leave. Silence descends. For a few hours, the village returns to what it always was, a handful of stone houses holding their breath between the hills, wondering how they escaped Jerusalem's gravity. Once a year, for 1 week, Jerusalem reimagines itself through light. The festival transforms the old city into an open-air gallery where ancient stones become screens for modern dreams. The Damascus Gate, usually a checkpoint of tension, blooms with projected flowers that climb its Ottoman walls. The citadel becomes a canvas for Jerusalem's history, told in lights that dance across Herodian stones. Even the western wall gets illuminated, though carefully, respectfully. Light that honors rather than decorates. But the real magic happens in the small spaces. Narrow alleys become tunnels of color. Hidden courtyards reveal light sculptures. Armenian pottery glows from within. The city that usually divides by quarters unites in wandering crowds following the same light path. Children who rarely see each other's neighborhoods walk together, faces painted by projections. Ultra-Orthodox families pause next to secular artists. Palestinian teenagers photograph Jewish installations. For 1 week, light becomes the common language. The festival says what Jerusalem cannot, that beauty transcends borders, that art speaks when words fail, that even the most divided city can share wonder. When it ends, the lights fade, the crowds disperse, the divisions return. But for those who walked the illuminated streets, something remains. The memory that Jerusalem can be different, even if only for a week, even if only in light. Jerusalem at dawn. The first light catches the dome of the rock, turns it to fire. Church bells ring. The muezzin calls. Someone blows a shofar. For a moment, all these sounds layer into something that's either harmony or chaos, depending on who's listening. This city defeats every attempt to capture it. Too sacred for one faith to own. Too small for all faiths to share. Too important to abandon. Too divided to unite. Jerusalem is not a place. It's a question. Can humanity share what it holds most sacred? Can we worship the same God in different ways without killing each other? Can stones hold contradictory truths simultaneously? Every sunrise here is a resurrection. Every sunset, a small death. The city continues its impossible existence, neither purely at peace nor entirely at war. Forever trapped between its name, City of Peace, and its nature, eternal battlefield. But perhaps that's the point. Jerusalem doesn't exist to be solved. It exists to remind us that some things are too important for simple answers. Some places are too sacred for single stories. The stones don't take sides. They've outlasted every empire that claimed them. They'll outlast the current conflicts. They know what we forget, that all conquerors become history, all divisions become archaeology, all walls eventually fall. Jerusalem endures not despite its contradictions, but because of them. A city where peace and conflict are not opposites, but dance partners, locked in an embrace that neither can break. And somewhere in its narrow alleys, between the prayers and protests, between the sacred and mundane, regular people continue what they've always done. They bake bread. They raise children. They fall in love. They mourn their dead. They live, stubbornly, hopefully, in the space between heaven and earth. This is Jerusalem, not the city of peace, not the eternal battlefield, but both, always both, forever both. The question isn't which Jerusalem is real. They all are. The question is which Jerusalem will survive. And to that, the stones give the only answer they know. Another sunrise, another chance, another day in the city that refuses to be anything less than everything. If this journey through Jerusalem's layers moved you, please share your thoughts below. Like this video and subscribe to Travel Hidden Portals, where we uncover the stories that live between the headlines. Because every city has its secrets, but only Jerusalem has secrets that might save or damn us all. Join us next time as we explore another place where history and mystery collide. Until then, may your journeys lead you not just to new places, but to new understanding.